Alrighty, so news of the week on this Saturday evening. So it's official. Inter Miami has signed Luis Suarez to nobody surprise, and that the contract looks like is going to be a year-long contract with an option to extend it into 2025. And that's going to be interesting to see whether or not if they decided to do so, because a lot of people are saying that this is it for Luis Suarez. This may be his final season. It feels like he's only coming to Inter Miami because Inter Miami basically building Barcelona from 2015. They're basically building the same team. And if only they added Neymar, then pretty much they just built Barcelona back in 2015. But it's also going to be interesting to see what Luis Suarez role is going to be with Inter Miami. Obviously, I got shirts and this have already got like if you thought Inter Miami doesn't have enough bandwagoners jumping in to see some of the best players, and especially Barcelona fans basically started to really keep an eye on Inter Miami because it pretty much is kind of nostalgia seeing all those players playing for Inter Miami that used to play Barcelona and used to dominate not only in Spain but also European soccer. But it's also going to be interesting to see, if the role is going to be very similar to what we see with Gareth Bale when he comes to LAFC, where Gareth Bale definitely made himself a name when he goes to LAFC. Definitely sell some jerseys while he was there, but mainly, he wasn't really a big part of this LAFC team, especially in the playoff push. And I know obviously he scored a crucial goal in MLS Cup to basically ties the game and send it to PK shootout, and eventually LAFC won MLS Cup. But if you look at how he performed in the playoffs or even during the stretch run, he wasn't really a big part of it because he's a guy that is kind of near the end of his career, and this is kind of the same case with Luis Suarez. I would expect that Leo Campana probably still will get most of the minutes, though I could be wrong. Maybe he'll be a regular starter and can still be a lethal goal scorer. That's what we see Luis Suarez has done. He's probably going to go down as one of the best number nine to ever play this game with the career that he's been having. Now, DC United is report to interview Hugo Perez as a head coach. Now, this is not a big surprise considering, for a while I was thinking that, DC was going to potentially hire Hugo Perez, and especially this would be a perfect fit. But there's a reason why Hugo Perez isn't as much of a household name as he was maybe a year or two ago, because what we saw with Hugo Perez and what he done with the El Salvador national team, especially what he did doing the World Cup qualifier in the CONCACAF region, doing some big things with El Salvador. Things kind of didn't quite go so well after that, and that it's been kind of mediocre during his time with El Salvador. And it's also kind of partially why I heard that it seems like teams have started to figure out his tactics, and he doesn't really have kind of a plan B in terms of adjusting his tactics. But nevertheless, it's going to be interesting to see whether if that's going to be the next head coach for DC. DC is one of those teams and one of many teams that still have not named their head coach heading into the 2024 MLS regular season, and we'll see whether or not if Hugo Perez, who is reported to be now interviewed with DC, whether or not if he's going to get the job. Because I feel like eventually I feel like this was kind of long overdue, that Hugo Perez has always been a name that I think that eventually he's going to land a job in MLS, and this could potentially be the case that he will finally get a job in MLS and get a job with a team that I thought from the beginning he probably would be interested in, and of course is the DC United job. Now, moving on in terms of the next news and talk about some of the signings. Well, the defending MLS Cup champion Columbus Crew was definitely busy in these last couple of days in terms of making signing. They first signed Guatemalan goalkeeper Nicholas Hagen, followed by signing midfielder Mariano Hinojosa from Pachuca, and then they also acquired Derek Jones off of free agency. Now, starting with the goalkeeper. Now, this is kind of interesting because you usually don't see a lot of Guatemalan player comes play in MLS, though probably the most famous Guatemalan player, at least recently playing MLS, is Rubio Rubin with RSL, though he's been kind of struggling at least in the past season since itself. And the other interesting thing is that it's kind of weird for Columbus to decide to burn an international spot on a backup goalkeeper. I mean, obviously, Patrick Schulte is going to still be the starting goalkeeper for this team, but it's also going to be interesting to see whether or not if Nicholas Hagen will have a similar story to what we saw with Eloy Rome. I mean, Columbus has known to bring goalkeeper that are coming from the CONCACAF region from teams that are part of national team that aren't really considered to be the Giants or CONCACAF or even in the mid tier level. They're kind of like Guatemala is kind of like in the mid or lower tier of the CONCACAF region, but they've been able to develop them to be a great starting goalkeeper. So, in case, God forbid, if Patrick Schulte does get injured next season, we'll see whether or not if Nicholas Hagen can step in and do well for this Columbus team. But again, there will be some that say that it's kind of strange and maybe it's unnecessary for them to burn an international spot on a backup goalkeeper. But nevertheless, the next signing with them signing Mario Hanazoja from Pachuca, from what I heard, he's a really good player, and I think he could be a guy that could be challenging the already good attack. I mean, this is basically throwing more fuel to the gasoline in terms of how good this Columbus Crew attack is under Wilfred Nancy. And then Derek Jones coming to the Columbus Crew. Now, Derek Jones, he is one of those guys that, when he came in, there was a lot of potential that he could be a decent MLS player. Didn't quite work out doing his last couple of seasons, bounce around the league a little bit. But now he's found himself with Columbus. And if there's one thing I know about Wilfred Nancy is that he's going to get the best out of players that maybe aren't playing relatively well before, but can instantly get them to be a decent player and can get them back to what we thought that Derek Jones could be. I mean, this was a kid that a couple of years ago there was a lot of potential that he could be a great player, and again, just never really quite worked out. We'll see whether or not of him coming to the defending MLS Cup champion will do so. And then the LA Galaxy have decided to sign fullback John Nelson off for free agency. Now, there was a rumor suggesting that it feels like FC Cincinnati was going to bring back John Nelson to the team. And if that is the case, I mean, John Nelson deserved to be back with FC Cincinnati, especially with the way that he was part of that FC Cincinnati team that was so poor. And then eventually he of course made himself play with St. Louis. And while he did kind of lose his starting position for St. Louis, I still think he's a hardworking and a fullback, and that's exactly what the Galaxy is trying to pick up. And in some way, I think this is kind of the Raheem Edwards replacement. Consider they decided to let go of Raheem Edwards, which I mean, I think there are definitely some question in terms of that move. Consider, on one hand, some might say that it's not a bad move. Consider Raheem Edwards wasn't like lighting the world on fire, but at the same time, he was serviceable, especially near the end of the season. And John Nelson is definitely nowhere near that player that we've seen. They don't play the similar style as what we've seen. So it's gonna be interesting move for the Galaxy to decide to bring him in, and we'll see whether or not if he's going to do decently for the LA Galaxy. And then Atlanta United have selected Derek Williams off of the re-entry draft, so obviously Atlanta definitely needed some depth. Though again, Derek Williams is a guy that it's hard to believe that he's now bounced around the league. The last time he's been was with DC United. He didn't really look that good at DC, and that going to Atlanta, we'll see whether or not it will help in help him change his new scenery and get himself back to the player that he was. Where during his time with the Galaxy, as much as I know the Galaxy has had problem in terms of defense, Eric Williams for a bit was one if not their best defender in that back line. But like I said, he's kind of bounced around the league, kind of similar to what we see with Derek Jones. And we'll see with him now going to a relatively decent team whether or not if he is going to bounce back in his career. Speaking of a guy that is kind of been bouncing around the league, and well, actually he's now playing the USL Championship, but I kind of want to give a shout out as well, and that of course is Juan Agudelo, who was acquired by San Antonio FC. And again, Juan Agudelo, it's hard to believe he's still playing in MLS. Well, not in MLS, but in the championship or even in a relatively higher tier in U.S. soccer. Consider it feels like he's been around for a long time. I mean, I remember when he signed with Minnesota United, that was what, like his fifth or sixth team that he's been on. It feels like he's been around for a very long time, even though he's still well, I wouldn't say he's young anymore. He's like in his 30s or so forth, but it feels like he's been around for like 20 to 30 years with the way that he's been bounced around the league, and it's good to see that he has found himself a new home, and especially joining a team like San Antonio, a team that has been one of the top tier team in the USL Championship, and we'll see how he's going to do there. And then moving on, talk about some contract extensions. So we saw the two New York team hand out contract extension with the Red Bulls signing Daniel Edelman to a new contract extension and NYCFC signing Kevin O'Toole to a new contract extension. I think both of these contract extension is well deserved. I mean, Daniel Edelman definitely had a breakout season, and he's definitely one of those players that is an up and coming player that could be good coming out of the Red Bulls Academy, and maybe even be sell to Europe for a bit of money. And then Kevin O'Toole, a relatively good utility piece for this NYCFC team. And then Minnesota United also signed Will Trapp to a contract extension. Now Will Trapp, I feel like he is probably one of the most polarized players and players that really divides the fan base last season. I mean, I have heard some people have said that Will Trapp has done pretty well last season, and the criticisms that he received was incredibly harsh. And then there's certain type of Loons fan base have said that Will Trapp is clearly not worthy to be a captain, and he's basically like a yellow card magnet. He only picks up yellow cards every single game, and not to mention when he did try to go for long range, he basically blasted that one all the way to Wisconsin rather than close to the net. And yeah, I mean, again, it's a very a polarized kind of player that really divides the fan base. But overall, I do think that he's still. I wouldn't say he's a decent MLS player, but he's kind of like around your average Joe kind of MLS player that will get the job done. And that there's been times where I think Will Trapp has performed well for this Minnesota team. And then there's also times where he hasn't done so well. So I can understand why that some people might not be happy they decided to re-sign him to a new contract extension because he didn't really impress whatsoever. But then at the same time, I can also understand why they decided to keep him because he's still a serviceable midfielder, and at times he actually channeled his days with Columbus where he was used to be considered to be one of the better midfield, and a guy that we thought that could be a on the U.S. men's national team regularly. Especially, I think the other thing about the U.S. men's national team and Will Trapp, I'm pretty sure the U.S. men's national team fans will want to banish Will Trapp to never be returning to the national team ever again. After when he was with the national team, he looked absolutely terrible, and the only reason why he was part of the national team was because it seems like he is Craig Berhalter's favorite player going back to his Columbus day, and that again, I'm pretty sure he's probably not going to be getting another cap with the national team, especially with the horror performance that he had before. Now, moving on in terms of the next news, and now talk about some transfer rumors, and also talk about some players that potentially could be leaving. And one of those players is Duncan McGuire. Though good news for Orlando City fans, he is actually not leaving anytime soon, at least according to this move, as they rejected a loan move for Duncan McGuire from Blackburn Rovers. Now, obviously, they could have easily accepted this deal. They could have easily gone with the Daryl DK route, where Duncan McGuire goes to Europe, impress in the championship level before decide to bought him back, and then of course sell him off for a big amount of money, as what we see with Daryl DK during his time with West Brom. Though Daryl DK has battled in injuries, and that's kind of the reason why he hasn't really been part of the U.S. men's national team, and especially he also hasn't done well with West Brom doing his time there. And that I think for Orlando City, knowing the fact that after it's just such a breakout season that Duncan McGuire has, hold on for him. They want to not want to make the same mistake with Daryl DK, where they decided to let him go, thinking that that's the best for his career. Which at time it looked like it was because he did break into the national team, but again, injuries kind of really for his career, and that they're also hoping that's not going to be the case with Duncan McGuire. They hope that he's going to continue to have a great second season, And then I would expect there's going to be a lot of teams that is going to look to trying to sign him, and especially a guy that you talk about the number 9 position in the U.S. men's national team that has been a very shortcoming, and that the U.S. have not been able to find a decent number 9 ever since Clint Dempsey retired. Duncan McGuire might be that answer. And I know it's still early days, but if he can continue the performance that he had in his rookie season and be even better next season and even make his move to Europe, won't be surprised. He could be the answer for the U.S. men's national team that has been desperately needing a number 9 for the past couple of years. Now, Nice is looking to acquire LAFC attacker Denis Bouanga. Now, obviously, I'm pretty sure that if Nice is looking to try to get Denis Bouanga, they're probably going to have to offer something like 30 or even $40 million, because if there's one thing that you know about LAFC, they do not let go of their star player easily, and especially with Denis Bouanga, easily the MVP of their team and easily their most important attacker of this team. They're not going to let him go easily. Though again, Denis Bouanga, I would not be surprised if he decided to go back to Europe. I mean, he was just destroying the league last season. Like the amount of times that he scored goals, and the amount of times where it made it look easy for him to score goals and carry this LAFC team on his back at times on the attack. And again, let's also even mention that who scored the only goal for LAFC in that MLS Cup against Columbus? Oh yeah, that's right. It's Denise Bouanga. So yeah, again, LAFC. There's no doubt that they are not going to let go of their most important asset just for cheap amount of money. And this is where if you're Nice, unless you're offering a huge sum of money that LAFC cannot not refuse to say no. I'm pretty sure LAFC is going to retain Denise Bouanga. Though again, I'm pretty sure all the rest of the league, and especially in the Western Conference, are hoping that Nice would offer a lucrative amount of money to get Denise Bouanga from them, because yeah, he's a guy that is going to put fear on every single opponent next season again, and I won't be surprised he's going to be a 20 plus goal scorer again like he did this season. And then FC Cincinnati is looking to acquire LAFC fullback Diego Palacio. So talking about a player that LAFC does not want to sell off, this is another player that they decide not to want to sell off. Though again, what's interesting about this is that there's been numerous teams that is looking to trying to get him, and it's getting to a point where it feels like the offer is just too good for LAFC to turn down. And for FC Cincinnati, knowing that there is rumor that Aurelio Barrio could be making his move to Europe this winter transfer window, and they're going to get a huge sum of money because of that. Replacing him with Diego Palacio will definitely be a like for like replacement. I mean, I know that Alvaro Barrio, he's probably the best fullback last season with how good he was with FC Cincinnati, but getting a guy like Diego Palacio, who also has done well and has been proven to be an MLS the defender that is ranked one of the top defender in the league. Yeah, that's not a bad deal. They of course are able to get him, though again it's probably going to be a lucrative amount of money, because LAFC is not going to let go of some of their best player that easily. And then the Portland Timbers. So one thing I mentioned about the Timbers in the moving forward series is they're looking for goalkeepers. After last season, it was basically a revolving door in the goalkeeping position, switching from David Bingham and Ayaz Ivasic. They just had to need a new goalkeeping group, and it feels like they might be looking to do exactly that, as they're looking to acquire goalkeeper James Pantemes and Trey Moose. See, from USL Championship Charleston Battery. Now, James Pantemis kind of lost his job to Jonathan Siwa's last season, and I won't be surprised he might be picked up, because he can actually picked up as a free agent since Montreal decided to not bring him back. But in the case of Trey Musi, he's a guy that really had a breakout season last year with Charleston Battery, and you could argue he was one of the best goalkeeper in the USL Championship. So yeah, we'll see whether or not if they get him. And if one thing about the Portland Timbers is that they have known have history of bring in USL Championship goalkeeper and immediately bring them to success. Remember that guy called, I think his name is Hunter Kentner or Logan Kentner that they bought. And he actually they actually didn't buy him, but they actually used him as an emergency goalkeeper because they were just down to like their fourth string goalkeeper, and they don't really have a fourth string goalkeeper. And I still remember that he basically stepped in and he basically provide a wall for this Portland Timbers side. I mean, especially in that game against the San Jose Earthquakes, he basically kept a shutout, which is something that nobody thought that was going to happen. So yeah, we'll see if they decide to pick up both of these goalkeeper, and it's also going to be interesting to see who's going to get the starting role. My money is probably going to be on James Pettimis because he does have MLS experience, but don't be surprised if Trey Musa could beat out that spot. And that if there's also one thing that I'm pretty sure the Timbers are hoping not to do last season, and that of course is rotating the goalkeeper, because you know if there one thing about going through a revolving door in terms of goalkeeper, it's not really a sustainable way to try and to keep a team to be a playoff contender or even an MLS Cup contender. That's what the Portland Timbers is hoping to try to do. Now, FC Dallas, they are interested in Argentine forward Santiago Castro. So obviously, you know, Dallas is desperate in terms of looking to try to get some more help on the attack. Consider that was one of their big issue last season, and we'll see whether or not if this deal does come through. And especially, you know, I don't really know a lot about this guy. I mean, he's not as high of an upside as what we saw with when they decided to link with Alan Velasco a couple of years ago. But nevertheless, we'll see if they do sign him, whether if he's going to do well, and especially not to mention, you know, if he is going to be a number nine. I mean, I don't think he's going to be directly a number nine, because you know you gotta have to fight off Jesus Ferreira for that spot, unless if Jesus Ferreira is going to be sold this winter transfer window, which I don't think that's going to be the case. He's probably going to just be a backup number nine, or maybe push in a wing area. And then you also got to remember Bernard Kamungo is also in that spot, and especially with the way that Kamungo played very well for FC Dallas last season, and is a guy that I've already mentioned before that if they decide to sell Jesus Ferreira, Kamungo is the perfect replacement. Kind of very similar to when they went from Ricardo Pepi to Jesus Ferreira. Well, it seems like now it's going to be Jesus Ferreira to Bernard Kamungo if Jesus Ferreira is going to be sold off during this winter transfer window. And then finally, last but not least, news not related to transfers or signings, is that DC United is actually reported to look to play some preseason games in Saudi Arabia. Now, if that is the case, they're going to be joining Inter Miami in that spot, because Inter Miami is playing some games in Saudi Arabia, especially playing against Al Nassr, which is a team that Cristiano Ronaldo is in, and that you know that rumor about Messi versus Ronaldo, that last dance, it looks like now indeed is true, even though I know a couple of months ago, the Inter Miami owner Jorge Mas basically shot down that rumor, but now it seems like it is actually indeed going to happen. But that's kind of surprising to see DC decided to be part of this tour. I mean, unless if Saudi Arabia decided to create this kind of little preseason tournament and decided to include some MLS team. I mean, yeah, that's kind of odd to see DC decide to join that. I mean, I don't know if they realize that Wayne Rooney is no longer there, so there's not really a big name player on that team. I mean, unless if you count Christian Benteke as a big name kind of player, there really isn't a very well known kind of player that you know is worthy for DC to just have to go overseas. Though again, I have also are not going to be surprised if Saudi Arabia did give DC a lot of money just to participate in this tournament. Because if you know one thing about Saudi Arabia, they are a country that, you know, while there is definitely the bad side of Saudi Arabia, they are trying to take use sports as definitely a direct propaganda toward their regime, and that's as far as I will go in terms of talk about the politics of Saudi Arabia, because this video probably is going to get demonetized, and also the probably you this is definitely not the channel that you want to hear me talk about politics. But yeah, we'll see if that of course those happen, and we'll see whether or not if other MLS team is going to do so. I mean, if Saudi Arabia is going to offer you a huge amount of money to play in this preseason tournament. I mean, I know there's the ethics in terms of it, but you know how it is with owners. They're not going to turn down huge amount of money if that, of course, indeed is the case. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of looking at these news that has happened in this past couple of days. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of these news. And as always, if there's any news I didn't mention here on the board, let me know in the comments below. Because like I said, we're in the off season now. We're doing 2 news of the week episode because there's just simply too much news to just do 1 news of the week episode per week. So it's gonna be interesting in the next couple of days what kind of news is gonna bring to MLS. Though I won't be surprised if the news cycle will quiet down a little bit because we're only 2 days away from Christmas, and usually around this time, this is when the news cycle will get a little quiet. So, when we get to Wednesday, if there's not really too much news, I'll probably delay that news of the week until maybe Thursday because once we get after the Christmas period, that's when the news cycle is gonna pick up again, and then it's gonna quiet again as we hit the new years and basically finish off in terms of looking back at 2024 or 2023 in MLS, and also looking forward to what happened and maybe some prediction of what we'll see in 2024 in the MLS season. But there you have it. That is pretty much it, like I said, of this video. And as always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys do like, smash the subscribe button. And yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.